Your friends are scrolling through short content, but you, my friend, you're here to learn. Welcome to TRS Clips. I've not spoken about my father on YouTube or the internet or social media in general. The greatest favor I've done to myself as a human being, the greatest favor I've done to my own heart is the fact that I've made peace with my father. After years of sharing angst, trying to make peace, but then kind of giving in to anger once again. There's a reason why the movie Animal worked in this country. We're a country full of daddy issues. I'm not talking about the feminist or alpha male argument at all here. I'm just talking about why Animal worked commercially in India. We're a country full of daddy issues. That was the core theme of the film. I personally believe that I'm in the 80th percentile of daddy issues. I think there's way worse daddy issues than mine in India and the world in general. But my daddy issues were pretty intense. I've spoken about it on the show. I'm not going to get into the details of why I didn't get along with my father, but think of it like it was two alpha males in the same house. And one of them was brought up in a generation that wasn't taught to emotionally express themselves. The other one was brought up in a generation that was overly emotional, and both were extremely passionate human beings. And unfortunately, that led to fights. A lot of fights during childhood, during teenage, during adulthood. Way after BeerBiceps got established, way after businesses got established, there were just fights. And then last year, I just grew up a bit. Things happened in my life. I lost my grandfather last year. I saw death very up close because my grandfather filled that father gap in my life. He was aware enough to understand that, okay, there's a situation going on in this child's life. There's a vacuum. There's an emotional vacuum. And he chose to fill it. That was my grandfather. I remember by the time BeerBiceps started and I was 22, and that's a whole other career story. I'm not going to talk about that. I remember my grandfather being bedridden, but being aware enough to have an intellectual conversation with me. I explained what I'm doing to him. He didn't understand YouTube, but he just backed me. Both my grandfathers, even my mother's father, backed me. When the rest of the world and the rest of my family wasn't really backing me, it was my sister and my two grandparents. Filled that father vacuum. So to lose one of these three people who had filled my father vacuum actually made me more aware of the vacuum. And I just realized that life is too short to hold that much anger in your heart towards another human being, especially if it's a parent. Some of us have mommy issues. So many of us have daddy issues. Everyone always advised me to sort out these issues because it's mean towards the parents after a point, because the deal with life and aging is that when you cross 50, I hate saying this, but when you cross 50, for many of us, you start becoming a child again. You lose some of that adultness that you, my friend, in your 20s or your 30s or 40s is picking up right now. And you're calling it adulting. The process of becoming an adult. A reverse process happens in your 50s and 60s and 70s. And it happens much more intensely the more you age. That reverse of adulting is what causes older people to eventually become like children. So I remember my dad actually writing me a very vulnerable message saying that, we need... See, this is why I'm even hesitating to talk about it on the solo podcast. But he basically said that we need to sort our shit out. I went and visited him. He doesn't live in India. When I saw him for the first time, I'd planned out how a conversation between us would go. Keep in mind, I'd not had a gentle equation with him my whole life. The last time I remember having a gentle, loving equation with my own father was when I was 6 years old-ish, 6 or 7 years old. So from age 7 to age 30, that's 23 years, I've not shared a positive equation with him. No conversation between me and him has been truly out and out positive. So I go to where he lives and I planned that I'd have this conversation with him, but when I saw him, a lot of that anger came up like a tsunami. It's not his fault. It's my fault. Anger is an emotion that you give into so much in your teenage and your early 20s without understanding the kind of damage it does to you as well as your loved ones. Thank God for the meditation. I noticed the anger rising and I realized I'm not going to act upon this. I'm just going to save this conversation for another time. Meditated a lot between that meeting and the next time I met him, which was post-podcasting with Yuvraj Singh, honestly. Because we spoke about so much of our daddy issues. I don't know how many people here have seen the Hindi podcast we did with Yuvraj Singh. To give you context, Yuvraj Singh is one of our country's most legendary cricketers. He had some very famous daddy issues. It was known to cricket fans all over our country that Yuvraj Singh has some kind of situation going on with his father, but he navigated that publicly and came out as a World Cup winner. So when Yuvi was visiting our set, my intention was to talk to him about daddy issues, because as a child, when I didn't know how to navigate my own daddy issues, I looked at Yuvraj Singh's journey and thought that, okay, that's what you do with all that anger. Take it out where it matters. Which is why for this year, I think this podcast was the closest to my heart. And after doing it, I just realized once again that life is too short to direct anger towards your own family. It doesn't matter if my father hasn't understood what went wrong between us. I'm not here for clarity. I believe in taking actions. I believe in correcting what's been wrong. All I can do as a 30-year-old right now is things that will actually please the hearts of my mother and my father. And if I'm not pleasing the heart of my father, I'm not pleasing the heart of my mother either. Now, I'm going to make a conscious effort to travel more with my father to get to know him, because I didn't really get to know him throughout my life. But the reason I'm sharing all this with you guys is because just this whole story and this whole process, it's healed me so much on the inside. It feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. I live life in a more peaceful way. I sleep more peacefully. I wake up more peacefully. I wake up with lesser angst related to my work. No matter how intense my work phase is, I will never attach that sense of anger to my work the way I once did, because I got to know in therapy that we try mimicking our family relationships in our professional lives until we start mimicking our professional relationships in our family life. That's why these two worlds are so strongly linked, and for me, my priority is still becoming the absolute emperor in whatever I choose to do. I don't want to be an unhappy emperor in my professional life, because until you've sorted your own shit out like a grown adult, you're not going to be completely happy. Just doing this, just making these efforts, having these regular conversations with him. And I'm not speaking to him that regularly because it's still a wound that's healing. It's been one of the best decisions of my life. I'm not going to say that I wish I did this earlier, because I didn't have it in me to do it earlier. But now that I've done it, along with the fact that I'm able to control my anger thanks to all that meditation that I'm doing, this is a cocktail for joy. I'm feeling a lot of joy in my life. I'm consciously giving so much more time to family. As I said earlier, my dad doesn't live in my city. My mom lives in my city. And if I have free time, which I get very less of, my first priority is my mother. Because I'm very conscious of the fact that I will get married. I will have a family life. And at that point, I might have to take half a step away from my mother. Because the most successful romantic relationships actually require time and energy. And I'm speaking this based on my understanding of long-term romance, based on the stuff I've seen around me. The most successful romantic relationships are always built out of giving it time and energy. Right now, I can give my mom all my free time. Later on in life, after I'm married, after I have kids, either I have to increase the amount of free time I have to give it to my mom, my wife, my kids, or if I'm still hustling as hard, I might have to take half a step away from my mother. Breaks my heart. It's kind of how life works though. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this playlist for more videos just like this. It's TRS Clips.